Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. This is a unique episode where I get to have a conversation with myself and another friend, another guest, somebody that we wanted to bring on the show. Tonight, Chris Hanna had to take a little bit of time off to be with his wife, to spend time with their little baby and take a little bit of needed vacation. He does work really hard, and we wanted to make sure we gave him plenty of time off for what he had to do. And so tonight I get to do the podcast by myself, something that I've liked to do. You know, I've done it before back on Atheist Analysis, and it's not something that, you know, scares me, I guess. And I brought a friend on to have a little bit more of a casual conversation tonight, a friend of mine named Jason. And he does a couple of different things. He does something called Pastor J. He has his own band called A Lost State of Mind. He does work for Atheist Apocalypse, and he also has a full-time job. He's been in the movement on and off for the last couple of years, and he's become a pretty close friend of mine in terms of somebody I like to collaborate with. Ironically, the intro music to this was produced and made by him. Not for us, trust me. It wasn't made by or for us specifically, but maybe someday he'll be able to do that. And a little bit of background on Jason. He used to work on Dogma Debate, then he kind of branched out onto doing his own music again and his own videos. And he does these things called Pastor J videos. And his Pastor J video is kind of, I don't want to say they're serious, but they're not serious, but they are serious, but they're really not. And basically what he does is he claims to be a pastor who graduated from the Fellowship of the Lord High School in Crooked Peak, Missouri. And one morning after graduation, he found himself in a strip club, drunk and out of cash. The ATM was broken, and Jay couldn't find his keys. He asked the Lord for help, and within 1 minute, a girl walked up with his keys and asked if he wanted to dance. He started preaching the word to God's flock that very day, for he had felt the power of God's love. Pastor J can often be found ministering to the lost souls in gentlemen's clubs across the country, as well as bathhouses and Catholic high schools. He wants everybody to be filled with God's love, and he is a vessel which carries that love. He also does a little bit of a fun channel called A Lost State of Mind, and that's where he produces all of his own music. He creates everything right on his computer with his guitars, his piano, his vocals. He doesn't want to be the next rock star. He does do this for others, and he does it also for himself. He attended Berklee College of Music, but now he likes to do all of this for fun. So tonight I'm going to have a conversation with him, talk to him a little bit about his music career, why he decided to donate some of his work to the show, his work with Atheist Apocalypse, his work on Pastor J videos, and we also have a special treat. We're going to talk about if Satan is a hero or if God is the villain. Please welcome to the show, Pastor J, Jason, or whatever the fuck you want to call him. So one of the topics we were going to cover tonight was going to be God versus Satan, who's evil, who's not evil. And it all stemmed from an original post that you posted, Jason, and we're kind of wondering, you know, you didn't have any videos for a while, and then all of a sudden you started coming back with this religious stuff, and now we're at the point where we're seeing videos again.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're back in full force with the Pastor J videos, because I stopped doing that for like 6 months. I got burnt out. I wanted to focus on my music, and so I did all that, and then I just started getting angry at religion again and conspiracy theorists and all those other crazy people, and decided I'm going to start making fun of these people again because it makes me happy. And so me and my group of scriptwriters got together and just started, like the newest video I'm working on is about Christian rock, which it's got a twist in there, and the one I'm doing after that is about feminism. And some of my friends already know I'm doing a feminist video, and they're like uber feminist. And what they don't realize is this new video is going to be about how feminists are abducting men and putting them into FEMA death train boxcars and cutting off their heads. It's past. And she's like, oh, if it's a positive video, it's going to look good. And I was like, it's a Pastor J video. What do you expect? It's not going to be what you want it to be.
Well, we're glad that you're having fun with it. And speaking of what you did in your off time with your music, we're very grateful that you were able to or produce the music and then it got donated to the show, because without that, we wouldn't be able to afford intro music as high quality as yours.
That's why, with my music, I don't ask for money. People want to give it to me, that's fine. With my videos, I don't have a large fan base, but I don't do Patreon with my videos. I don't want any money for those. It's not anything I'm going for, because I don't want that to control anything I do. I just want to have a good time.
Yeah. But we had, and that's the funny thing, is because our Patreon for this show hasn't taken off at all. We get $1 an episode.
Yeah.
so
yeah.
Who the $3.50 or $3.60 or whatever. But that's better than nothing. But it's just kind of funny because we had somebody come and we have people. The big argument against us is not that we have shitty content. It's that we're doing this for $1 an episode, and how stupid can we be to have these conversations for $1 an episode? Seriously, I get these emails. I don't even understand why people would bother to waste their time telling me this. I don't care.
But that's the thing, is they're looking at it all wrong. Like they're mad at you because you're doing it for $1 an episode, and and a lot of us are like, dude, we'll fucking do it for free. We don't give a shit. It's not. I do my music for free, and if I get money for it, which people have paid me, and some podcasters have dropped money in my account for one song. I had one guy. He's giving me a total of $40 for 2 songs, and I was like, dude, you did not have to do that. And he's like, that's just something I want to do. I was like, oh, well, if you want to, and that's awesome. But that's I'm just happy that you get to hear what I'm doing. But yeah, man, it's a big world out there, and everyone's got different opinions, and I just try to stay away from a lot of it, because I'm just like sometimes it gets so convoluted. I see all these videos and I'm just like, what the fuck is anybody even talking about anymore? Like, come on, man. Everyone has to have an opinion. Everybody feels like they need something to say. I mean, I do too, but I try to at least be funny about what I put out there.
I think some of it has to do with the fact that if you look at it as a whole, what has the internet done? It revolutionized technology, right? And now it's revolutionizing media, because they're having to come up with new ways to monetize things.
Yeah.
It's fast. It's just super, super fast. And compared to what before, if you think about it, you had to go through a radio station to do all these different things. Now you got independent people, like, for instance, Mark Maron. Big Mark Maron fan.
Yeah.
I think he's hilarious. That motherfucker has made a fortune doing this out of his garage.
Yeah. Yep. It's a good show, too, if you've seen the show.
Yep. Yeah, we watch. We haven't watched this season yet, but we usually... The wife and I, that's kind of one of her big things. So there you go. She sponsors him every month just to be able to listen to the catalog, and all his fancy stuff that he releases and stuff like that. I don't get into him that much. I like his show, and I'll listen to his podcast. I'm not as I don't like listening to celebrity interviews, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah,
I kind of find it very rarely do I enjoy any of that, because it somewhat kills that mystery behind them. And then on top of that, on top of killing that mystery, what it does is it turns around and all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, look, I now kind of think this person's an asshole because they said something shitty that I disagreed with it. Now I got to think they're an asshole, and I don't want to do that. I like this show. Damn.
Dude, that's exactly why I don't get starstruck, and I try to avoid celebrities at all costs. I don't want to meet my heroes. I don't want to see them in person, because I don't want them to be an ass, and I don't want my, I'm a big fan of Maynard from Tool and Pussifer and I think Pussifer is a great side project he's got going on. I'd never want to meet the guy, though, because I just don't want him to be a dick.
Yeah, because then you'd hate him. You'd be like, oh, you
then
ruined the music.
No, that's exactly right. And so that's why I just kind of... So, no, I definitely understand that.
Yeah. And it's funny, so a little history. I mean, I have a couple of good friends, and my buddy likes to get signatures. He goes and pays for signatures. That's what he does. He likes to meet the people That's what he spends his money on. So more power to him. He's welcome to do what he wants to do. But we'll go to these concerts and we'll go. The whole goal is to meet somebody. Well, we met Brendan Small. I think it's Brendan Small from Death Clock, the guy that came up with Metalocalypse.
Yep.
And, you know, we've met Gene before because we big Fear Factory fans, and, you know, we've met Gene a couple of different times. Well, we meet Brendan, and he was kind of a fucking dick. And then, you know, like, he did sign the autographs, and then he kind of said, well, I can't believe you paid this kind of money for this. And it's like, fuck you, dude. Like, God damn it, we gave you that money. You made a fortune off this. And yeah, I guess Adult Swim probably took a lot of that money.
Yeah.
But that's just the shitty thing with that whole thing, is that when you met him, he kind of ruined it. Whereas we met Peter Steele before, before he passed away.
Yep.
And, you know, great guy, wonderful person, shook his hand. He was very nice, said, I can't believe you own some of this stuff. Like, this shit's, like, really rare. And, you know, and so somebody, like, it completely throws your experience off. So sometimes you get lumped in with the good people, and then sometimes you're like, eh. Like, I would like to meet Trent Reznor. For me, that would be a dream come true. Yep. But it would probably ruin the music because I bet he's an asshole.
I don't know about him, and I mean, I've been listening to Trent since '94, I think, and I know it's funny because Rachel's a big fan too, and I was like, I played the song "Wish" the other day because I put Trent in one of my top 10 Christian bands out there. Yeah.
Wait. How does Nine Inch Nails fall into top 10 Christian bands?
Somebody commented on one of our videos asking for Pastor Jay's takes on Christian bands, and so I, you know, Pastor Jay's pretty much retarded, and so I decided to list the top 10 Christian bands that I know of. So Pantera's in the list, G.G. Allen's in the list, and in Pastor Jay fashion, I've come up with ways that they're Christian, like Trent Reznor. You know, I was like in the ongoing debate as to how long the nails were. Trent Reznor did some Christian scientific research and ultimately decided the nails were 9-inch nails long. Then he took that name and attached it to what would be the greatest disco band on the planet. Yeah, it's
cringeworthy.
Well, everything Pastor Jay does is cringeworthy. So.
Didn't you before you retired that persona? Didn't you do a Joshua Fuckerstein video? You did a Joshua Fuckerstein video. You did 2.
I have like 160 videos on that channel, and yeah, I think I did 2 Fearstein videos. The Fearstein cam.
Yeah.
And then I also do a bunch of the driving with Pastor J videos, which the last driving with Pastor J video pissed off a lot of people because I was talking about Target and the transgender issue, and I came up with a reason why people want to dress up as women, because women's restrooms are amazing, and so I went to that. It's got like 1,600 views and like 70 likes and 20 dislikes, and I'm starting to get Christians now on my channel like debating, and I never debate. I usually just make fun of them because I don't really care about the debate. But some of my friends will pop in there and they'll be like, I'll wake up in the morning, there'll be like 50 comments, people just debating, and the Christians acting like a dick, and I'll sometimes comment something silly, but that's just how I am. I like listening to debates, but I don't care about arguing with people. You know, I don't care about, and it's what's funny because people think I should care about arguing, and when they realize that I don't give a shit, and when they realize that my satire and my comedy and my I don't give a shit attitude is also off camera, they tend to get mad at me as if like I did this horrible thing. But that's just the way I am. Like,
so do you think that people, because they know it's satire or they're involved in the movement in some way, and they come across it and they're like, okay, well, this is funny, and then all of a sudden they find out you don't care about things, or you don't care. It's not that, I guess I would disagree with you. I wouldn't say you don't care. I just would say that you don't seem to want to engage in the topics that's not your forte. That's not something that I guess brings you happiness. And if, as an atheist, I mean, if you're gonna fucking be here for one time, why would you do things that make you unhappy? You know?
No, you're right. You're right. And let me even add on to what you're saying right there. You know, you're absolutely right. I was wrong. It's not that I don't care, but it's that my what I do care about, the things that make me angry, instead of trying to come to a conclusion on any given subject, I tend to just laugh about what's silly to me. So if I'm listening to a radio show, or if I'm listening to some conspiracy woo shit, and somebody says that they woke up, they had a sick dog, and they woke up one day and there was a miniature UFO in their living room, and miniature green men popped out and healed their dog. I don't care about having a debate on whether or not that's wrong or right. That's funny to me. That is so absurdly, and that I've heard that's been on a show. And so for me, I'm going to laugh at it and point and laugh. And yeah, it might be bullying, but to me, it's like, I can't take that seriously. I can't have a serious debate about that. And so I'll make something, I'll write a script or whatever, or the guys that I work with will write a script, and then we'll make a funny, stupid video because I'm having fun. It makes me laugh. I get satisfaction from making the videos and coming up with the cool little designs and stuff. And two, I enjoy the fact that some friends around me who do get angrier than I do about these things, I find satisfaction that they're laughing at the videos along with me or even at me. And that makes me feel good. And that's usually as far as I take it.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like you're divulging the situation, or diffusing. Divulging. Where the fuck did I come with that word? You're diffusing the situation in essence, right? You're like, hey guys, I know you're really serious and this really pisses you off, but...
Well, yeah, I'm diffusing the situation, but I'm also... and this is something I didn't realize that I was doing until a little bit later as I was doing more videos, is I'm also undermining what some people really think. And I'm also showing how easy it is to just make shit up. I'm showing how easy it is to have, to say stupid things that actually could make sense. A flood happened on Mars. We found 3 versions of Noah's Ark. Well, that's because they came over on spaceships. Like, it's like, and this isn't just a Christianity thing. I mean, we're me and the guys, we're picking on like religion. We're picking on conspiracy theorists, aliens, anti-vaxxers. Like, we just find the stupidest shit possible, and we try to make it funny because, like I said, on one hand, I can't have those debates, and on the other hand, I get sad when my friends around me are getting pissed off by this shit. So I find a way to make things funny, to kind of, like you said, diffuse people, or to make people just have a moment where they can see the silliness and just joke about it.
Yeah. And I think if you look at that, so, I've been an official atheist now, I think, for 4 years. I think it's 4 years now. Yeah, it's 12. Yep, 2012, so about 4 years. And, when I came out, it was the fire of the brimstone, the anger.
Yeah.
Just like aggressive,
Yep.
just like
me too. Yeah.
And everything I did, like I volunteered for different organizations that I would not do that now. There's things I would not do now that I did before, because the difference is what I thought I was doing to help. Really, in the end, in my opinion, is not. I don't know. I guess for me, it wasn't that great of a help. It was a great outlet. I was able to express myself if I like-minded people, and I met a lot of great people, but in the end, for me, it turns into now more of the activism and stuff that I like to participate in is a completely different thing. Like, I want to do more education, and I want to help people in a completely different light versus trying to debunk religion. On Atheist Analysis, we had that stupid conversation with Christians, and I guess it's not stupid because I actually have some Christian friends out of that now. But in reality, in the actual reality of things, I've done one debate since then. I don't really have an interest. I have somebody else trying to court me for a debate. And he's just kind of like, I don't know if I care enough about that topic anymore. Like, oh, you don't believe, or you believe in God? Okay, is it affecting me? Nope. Can we argue about what does affect me? Oh, you want to stop transgender people? Fine, let's have that conversation. Or, I don't know. I guess I don't see why I have to be focused on it too.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you something. I don't think I've told anybody about, except for like 2 or 3 people on this planet. I've never said this on a show or anything, but I admit that, I have biases, and I also have a very matter-of-fact way about myself. And in some ways, I can be just as stubborn as most creationists, even in terms of what I think. And I'm also I have some traces of nihilism in me, right? I don't have it enough to where I don't want to do anything ever. I just have it enough to realize it, and a few billion years, this whole planet's going to die and none of this is going to matter anyway, right? But I, which is one of the reasons why, like, while I'm here, I have to make things funny because I can't focus on all the angry shit, all the seriousness of it all. But like you just said, with all those qualities in me, I get to this point where my feet get planted firmly in the ground, and I have this mentality of, nope, there's no fucking God. Shut up. I don't give a shit. And it's not fair, and for a lot of other people who want to have that conversation with me, and it's very I don't want to say willfully ignorant, or I'm trying to think of a term. It's very stubborn of me. But I with my brain, I'm good at music. I'm good at art. I'm not good at being intellectual, man. And so I'll have that thought process. Like when people are like, "Oh, do you believe in God? Are you an atheist or an agnostic?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a fucking atheist. There's no God. I don't give a shit. Shut up." And I'm done with it. And because the thing about me is because you always have these people out there that are like, "Well, anything's possible," and like, there could be this, there could be whatever they want to implant there. But for me, it's like, well, until that time comes, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm not gonna, like when people say there's life on other planets. Sure, yeah, there could be some bacterial, I can't say that word, bacterial microbe on some planet somewhere. But am I personally gonna give it any more thought, than that, or am I just not gonna give a shit? And am I just gonna say nope? There's not until there's the evidence. I know it's not a good way to think. I know that. I'm aware of that. It's just easier for my brain to process when I think that way, because too many possibilities makes my brain go fucking haywire.
Well, if you think about it, you can only process so many things in a day anyway, right? So even if your brain capacity was double, it still could only process X amount of things. There's only X amount of things you can process in a time frame, and at some point you got to pick and choose what you prefer to process and what you don't. But speaking of processing, you helped us out. Your song is the intro to our show. Thank you for that. We add a little bit to it.
How dare you?
I had some of my vocals, and
I don't care. That's fine, man.
We put the Bannister gentleman on from Paleo Radio. He did our intro.
Nice.
So, but outside of that, and it's kind of funny because I get people every once in a while, certain people that'll message me. For instance, and I told him he should contact you because I was like, yeah, he doesn't charge us. He says just put his name out, and that's all he cares. And this guy's like, hey, have you ever listened to the Q podcast? Yep. He's got a commercial on there that's got the same music you do.
Yeah.
He's like, do you know he stole your music? I was like, no, he probably had that before me.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of, I think there's 6 podcasts now that use my music, and I try to let them know, if they want to use a certain song, I try to let people know, oh, I think this one's using that one, but it's, whatever. But yeah, I don't, I think it's great. I also write music for Atheist Apocalypse podcasts, and I write a completely different kind of music, more ambient type of stuff. But yeah, I love sharing what I have, not just because it puts my name out there, but I'm a huge podcaster and I listen to a lot of different types of podcasts, and I think it's great when music is added to a podcast in some way or another, even if it is just the intro or outro. And good music can really affect the podcast, and so that pleases me more than somebody knowing who I am. It pleases me more knowing that somebody could listen to any podcast, maybe that has my music on it, and they can go, "Oh shit, that sounds pretty cool, man! It seems like a legit podcast. Let's go with it," And so yeah, but going back to I think what you were going to ask as far as processing goes. Like I said, I can process music and art very well.
Just the atheism, it sometimes drives you nuts.
Well, not just atheism. I mean, it's not an atheism thing. It's hard to explain. It's anything. I guess anything that doesn't have a solution to it, right? Yeah, we can sit here all day, you and I. We can sit here and go, yeah, we don't believe in God. That's it. And Christians can say there is a God, and anti-vaxxers can say, no, vaccines are causing my baby to turn into something they're not. But what I've noticed and what frustrates me, I guess for me, the not being able to process things is more of a choice than it is something I just can't do. And I find it hard whenever I hear debates and I hear both sides of the story where there's never a good conclusion, right? You never hear a, evolutionist versus creationist debate where, there's always like one side changes to another. And sure, people in the audience, they might come to different conclusions, and that's great. And there is some merit in that, but I don't like closure, I don't think.
Which is funny because I'm on the opposite side. I don't like the unknown drives me nuts. And you can ask my wife, like, there's certain things I have fucked up habits that, it's like, why are you doing that? You know that's not going to change anything. Shit when, we go to concerts. My buddy and I all go to concerts, and we both have one rule. You do not listen to the band you're going to see that day, period. Right. No questions asked. We have cognitive bias that prevent us from doing this because we've had bad things happen to us when those situations happen. Yeah. Bad things have happened, like really bad things, like like jails and cars getting broken into, and people pointing guns at us and type of crazy just shit that you'd be like, no way, Chris, there's no fucking way that shit really happened to you. Just because you listen to a song, and him and I we actually, because he claims to be a Christian, but he's not really. He doesn't go to church. He never has. He hates organized religion. He basically is a deist at best. And I think it only is because it's the only thing for him as an individual that can keep him grounded. And there are people out there like that.
Yeah, of course.
His morals come from this invisible thing that holds us together. And he likes ghosts. He hates not being able to believe in ghosts. He can't imagine that we did enough drugs in our past lives that we hallucinated enough times. Right. He just can't accept that fact. But it's just funny because when you talk about those things out loud, sometimes you just stop and laugh and you go, there is humor in that, right? And if that's what drives you to do your videos, and your videos are very well educated, though I'm sure you get a lot of hate mail from them. But if that's what drives you, that to a point, that's where the art's taking you. You have to let it go there. Whereas me, I'm on the other side where it's like, this interview, we're going to close, we're going to do this, and we're going to talk about this, and I don't like the open rambliness. I always have something in my head where I'm directing things, at least in some way, shape, or form.
Right. Yep.
Except for tonight, obviously, because we've talked about a lot of crazy shit. But for me, that's the way I work, and I have a hard time not thinking like that. I have, which probably makes me very good when it comes to playing games, like board games and video games and stuff like that, because I'm thinking ahead to the indecision. But it doesn't work real well in relationships.
Well, at risk of making myself sound like I don't have a handle on my own thoughts, I will also say, I just got done saying that that I don't like I hate that there's no closure to any kind of given argument. I think the only exception to that rule, and you touched on this, is when there is humor. Like lately, I've been listening to a podcast called The Unexplained Files, and it's a lot like the radio show Coast to Coast that used to have Art Bell on it. Now it's got someone else, I think George Norrie, and it is it's not as crazy as Alex Jones in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it's a lot crazier because of stories like the guy with the miniature UFO in his house that healed his dog. But the reason why I can still listen to things like that and not go crazy, the reason I can still listen to EWTN, the Catholic radio, in my car all the time, is because it's at such a level of stupid that it makes me laugh or it gives me ideas, right? And so it's a very, I guess the best way to explain it, it's a very complicated thing, and it is and how I think is dependent on the day. If I'm tired, I'm not going to think about shit. If I'm having a bad day, it's going to affect how I deal with things. There's some days where I wake up and I'm like, I want to debate the entire world about fucking everything. I don't give a shit. So it
goes back and forth.
It goes back and forth. My brain's always a mess. That's why when I have these kind of conversations with people, I try not to be like solid in a certain point. I try not to say this is how I am for sure all the time, because I know I change. I know some days I don't feel like being funny. Some days I want to get mad at something. So, but for the most part, yeah, you're right. I deal with things in a funny way, in a humoristic from your saying the word. I deal
You
with
get to make up words, though. That's the whole point of your show, right? You make up words.
Oh God, dude. That's why. Like, even if I make a mistake in my videos, I let it go because I'm like, well, that's what Pastor Jay would have done. So it's
Because he's too stupid to edit it, right?
right. Yeah.
And we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Make sure you stick around, everyone.
Hello, I'm Miss B. Haven,
I'm Demanda Wright,
and we're
promoting secular feminism. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Like what you're hearing? Check out more Cellar Door Skeptics every week right here on Spreaker and iTunes. Make sure you come back and check out new episodes with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. And always, remember, prepare for the revolution.
What will a child do when there is no way out?
Chris might have told you that his mother's boyfriend was strict, but he wasn't your run-of-the-mill evil stepfather.
Gracious, Chris, what are you doing out so late?
A shocking blitzkrieg of murder, conspiracy, and child abuse.
Publishers Weekly.
A grotesquely powerful tale that deserves to be read.
Heresy in the Heartland.
Who is Alan Garfield?
Depending on who you believe, he is either a celebrated Christian minister or the leader of a child abuse cult.
1324 by M. Dolan Hickman. Available on Amazon.com.
Hey, this is Keith.
And this is Jen, and we're from Not Another Atheist Podcast.
You're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Join the revolution.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for sticking around through that first segment. So let's talk. We have one topic. We have one topic. We haven't even hit our topic yet. But even before we talk about our topic, because maybe this will play into it. So when you get your inspirations for the Pastor J videos, and you get people, do you get tons of messages where people actually take you seriously? Do you get that where Christians are like, right on, soldier? We believe you're a real pastor.
I will say this, except for maybe like 10 people, and I'll say I want to say something else too. There are two other people that work with me who have been with me since the beginning, and they both help me write out scripts because nothing I do is on the fly. It's all scripts. Sometimes I improv those scripts, but it's my friend Jeremy Stevens and my other friend Jay Crowfoot, and I also have Lucy D and Ryan Burkhart. They're starting to help me, and I have other help sometimes too. But basically, I'm sorry. What was your question? Because I was going into something. What did you ask again?
I asked if you had a lot of Christians that actually took you.
Okay. So I wanted to say that first because I want people to know it's not all just me. A lot, with anything you do, it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child, and so I don't like taking all the credit for it. But with that being said, the entire time I've been doing this, it's been coming up almost 2 years now since I've been doing these videos. Our fan base is relatively quiet. We don't get a lot of video counts, but the count is consistent. Maybe like 400 to 500 views per video sometimes, and I have never once gotten an email from anybody, even though my email is plastered on the lower right-hand corner of my screen. All the comments that we get are usually comments on the videos themselves, and there's about 10 to 20 people who are consistent commenters, and they're funny as fuck because they get the humor and they know how to joke with me, and they also know how to troll people who are trying to be trolls. We're starting to get Christians who are just really angry and pissy about what we post, but a lot of, and most of the negative comments we've ever received have been from atheists who don't understand the satire and who think I'm really a Christian saying these things. And I can't fault them for that because what
it
I
means
say,
you did your job right.
Well, I mean, the satire that we do is very transparent. Like, I'm fucking around, but the problem though is with the material that we cover, people actually say these things. One of the video I told you about that we're working on right now about feminism and how their feminists are coming in and putting men in death camps and all this shit. That's not true. But the whole death camp FEMA thing, and atheists are coming to take us and kill us and cut off our heads with guillotines, that shit's real. There are people out there who think those things. So when I make a video, and instead of using atheists, I talk about feminists that are doing that, it can be taken literally because people actually have these thoughts. You have a thought, you can think of the craziest thought right now, and somebody out there has probably thought of it. And it's mind-boggling. And so for somebody, especially a skeptic, to watch one of my videos and to see like the first 30 seconds of it and all of a sudden go, oh, let me put my armor on, let's do this keyboard warrior thing. They get crazy. And I try not to be dicks to them because I know I get it. I get what it's like to be angry. And so usually I'll kind of just, playfully troll them until they get that, oh shit, he's satire. And then they become cool. And then, they're cool. So yeah, I don't get a lot of hate, but I think a lot of that has a lot to do with the fact that not a lot of people know our channel. And
so if you're listening to this and you would like to give Jason some hate mail, please make sure you head out to Know the Truth, and I'll throw the link in the description. Make sure you send it to your Christian friends, just so he gets some hate mail. He's bored. He's bored here, folks.
I'm very bored, and chances are, if I get any kind of email, I'm probably going to make a video answering your question. Because back in the day,
I'm creating a fake account right now as we speak. There's going to be a fake account. You're getting a Christian email.
Well, back in the day, like I used to always I would get. I think I got like a couple emails, and I made videos out of those. In fact, the newest video that we're working on about Christian rock, somebody, that was a comment somebody wrote, somebody wrote on one of the videos, and my friend Jeremy wrote a script out for that. And so, yeah, I like interacting with people. I think that's another great thing about this is, the interaction I have with the people. If you watch my videos and you become a fan and you comment on my videos, be as stupid as possible because we feed off of that. It's fun for us. It's fun, like just being in that mindset. So again, the whole point of that channel is to make you laugh. It's not to make you have heated debates, but you can have those if you want. I just won't participate. But yeah, it's all about laughing at some of the stupidity that's out there.
Yeah, and I do think that there's quite a bit of it. And it's funny, though, like you said earlier, like if you, whatever thought you have, somebody else is probably having that exact same thought. There's 7 billion fucking people in the world now, for Christ's sake. So
yeah,
at some point, you're right, we're gonna overcross each other. And when you look at our podcasts and your YouTube channel, and you can say, yeah, I only get 400 or 500 views, and it is what it is. But again, the goal for you is comedy relief. It's somewhat personal for you. You were saying now you just started up your channel again because you now hate religion and you want to kill every Christian on the face of the earth.
Well, let me add to that. It's not even that. And obviously I don't hate Christians because, my whole family's Christian and they're relatively nice and everything, but it's not, I admit, I haven't gone through what a lot of people go through when they deconvert. Like I've had a pretty patient family and a pretty nice family and they haven't treated me like shit, but it's not religion anymore. It's everything else that's, especially conspiracy theorists. That's fun to listen to. And also, with Rachel, for those that don't know, Rachel used to be on Dogma Debate and she used to do the science section, and she still loves, she still always reads up on evolution, loves giving talks as much as she can. And I make her watch creationism videos because it makes me laugh, and I like seeing her get angry. So the thing is like, it's not just religion anymore, because I think I'm past that point where I realize I'm past the point where I think that Christianity is the only issue that we face in the world. And when you listen to some of these conspiracy theorists are always talking about how they're out to get you, and you're like, well, who's they? They're like the government, the globalists. You're like, oh my God, you guys are just as bad. I heard one woman talk about how we need to have a revolution in America and how revolutions are always a good thing. And I was like, what the fuck? Don't know. And it's lunacy. So yeah, it's not just a hate for Christians. It's a hate for most people.
You just see, and you know, that's what I used to say. I used to say I'm just an opportunity hater on all ends of the spectrum. I hate everybody because in the end, you know, and I think that's one of the things I realized is that I can say Christianity is a virus, right? And I'm not going to. I listened to one of Seth Andrews' last podcast, and he had these, you know, PhD individuals come on and basically explain why they thought it was a virus. And I don't 100% disagree with that. But in the end, I don't think that's the ultimate root cause of everything.
Right.
I think it's just this large culmination, and everything feeds into each other. And so, you know, religion and Christianity may be a virus, but you also have your conspiracy theorist virus over here.
Yeah.
And then you have your individual over here that's charismatic and wants to make money off the community. And he don't care. Christianity just is 70% of the United States, so why the fuck would he cater to the 30%? Because the 70% is going to pay more in his paycheck.
Well,
and when you add all that shit together, that's what's creating that concoction, if you want to call it that.
Well, they say 70% of Christianity, but out of those 70%, who's really a diehard Christian who's going to hate, you know, transgender people using a bathroom? Like, there's so many different types. So, you know, you could have half of those 70% that are just like, yeah, whatever, we're still assholes in some other different way. But, you know, for me, it's dishonest. I mean, even, you know, I used to only pick on Christians with my channel, but, you know, as I've quote unquote evolved or whatever, for lack of a better term, I've started to realize that's not the only problem. And when you compare, and I'm going to say this as a cliche thing, when you compare most Christians to some of the other problems that are out there, you know, not even including ISIS, I'm talking about like, you know, woo and that, you know, anti-vaxxers,
spiritualism.
Spiritual, I mean, anything. I mean, it's either they're all just as bad, and some of them are even worse. And like I said, for me, it's I can't get mad at all that shit. You know, I see all that negativity, and I do get mad, but I have to find another way to undermine it, to make it seem silly. Because, like I said earlier, like I don't live in a world where anything is possible. So when somebody starts trying to talk about, again, using this because it's the only thing I think about now, if somebody starts telling me about a miniature UFO in their living room, there's no fucking way I'm going to believe that. You know?
Yeah. That's like XFiles shit right there. Which, ironically enough, I've been rewatching the XFiles because in my childhood we were not allowed to watch the XFiles, so I've not seen 99% of these episodes. And my wife, you know, she grew up in a very her mom claims to be a Christian, but they never went to church. She used to send my wife to church, and then her and her husband would stay home. They didn't go to church. And
so they're the type of Christian I was talking about. That's half the Christians that aren't really Christians.
Yes, and they voted Democrat their whole life. They both her parents are Democrats. You know, her father has passed on now, but you know, him and I would used to have discussions before he passed, and it would be funny because we would talk the same thing, and he just would say, you know, when you get a little older, Chris, at some point you're going to lose that gusto. You're not going to have that energy anymore. You're going to hate them, but you're just not going to have the energy to want to do anything about it.
That's you know, he's totally right, because again that's where, because I, just like any new atheist, I did go through my angry atheist phase. I was a dick, dude, but I lost that gusto, and it's you know you could argue that I'm sort of a bully about the way I do things. Now, most things I talk about on those videos, or just in general, if somebody who I was targeting were to have a one-on-one conversation with me, if I thought it was worth even having that conversation, I would have a decent conversation. But since my videos aren't interactive really, you know, they're just me making a video and then it's posted and I go to bed or something, I could just do what I want. And it could come off as bully, it can come off as dismissive, but I tend to think that I have that mindset of like, I'm just not old school, but I'm just like, you know, it isn't real. Let's go do something else. You know?
Well, you know, I guess on the bullying side, for me, the way I see it is, and you know, I've been accused of that before, where I've been a bully for social justice issues. Somebody's like, you're not willing to listen to the other side, and the facts don't float your way, and it's like, okay, well, here's facts that contradict yours, so you're right. There are facts that contradict mine, so which ones are right? You know, how do you determine that? To me, the bullying aspect comes though more when you want to silence people and say, nope, I'm done with you. You're no longer allowed to have a voice. And the other thing is when we start getting personal, that's when I have a problem with it. You know, most of your videos, you do have a few celebrities that you've tapped on the shoulder a couple times. But I think the difference is that the people that are putting themselves in the limelight, right? There should be some sort of criticism, because if they've got millions of people following them, if you can't say, like, look, I mean, really, you follow this guy? Like Joel Osteen. We made fun of Joel Osteen before. Like, who in their right mind donates money to this guy? I mean, he is like a conman from Conman, for Christ's sake. I mean, his house is worth more money than I'll see in my whole life, unless for some reason I get, like, I don't know, I become a CEO of my company. And it's just insanity. Like, what? But, you know, in my opinion, we should be able to land-base that cocksucker and be like, look, he's fucking stealing millions from you people. Hello, wake the fuck up. But if you were to go and attack and say all Christians steal money and are horrible people, I would probably think that's more bullying. And I don't see your videos doing those type of things.
Right. On that feminist video, I do tap somebody on the shoulder. I won't say that person's name, though. Whoever watches it will see. And I expect some sort of lashback, if anything, from a few people that support this guy. I will say, though, I agree with you in that, like, one of my issues with any debate that I see, any debate that I've seen lately, especially in regards to feminism, is and also just anything in general, is it becomes so convoluted that I don't even know what the fuck anybody's saying anymore, right? I can watch any feminist video right now and be like, are they against it or for it? I don't know what's happening, because there's so many people that want to talk. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against free speech, but I personally, and my mind could change on this, okay? So I'm not trying to start some kind of war with anybody, but I personally believe that some people just don't need to talk. Because no, hear me out, because what it does, it's not that I'm saying these people are stupid, they shouldn't talk at all. But what it does is when you have any given issue and 9 million people want to have their say, you really start to lose focus on what's being said. Now, this is a personal thing for me, and with everything we've talked about, it's clear that I'm not the largest turd in the toilet, right? Like, it's clear that I'm not as bright as some of you amazing people out there that, can keep up with this stuff. But for me, it's like the more I see, the more I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. And I start to lose it. I get to the point where I don't even care about issues that I should be caring about, right? And then to add to what you just said, to what I'm saying, is when you have some of these people that are extremist about it, so where they're silencing people and they're telling people, if you don't join our side, then fuck you, then you're either for us or you're against this mentality. I see a huge problem with that. And of course, if I'm gonna tap somebody on the shoulder in my videos, I mean, I'm not gonna make a video completely berating anybody, but I might throw in a few lines here and there that's kind of just going, that might be like, yeah, I'm talking about you when I say this. But that's as far.
You could tap us on the shoulder anytime you want. We could use that publicity. What do they say? No publicity. No bad publicity is whatever the fuck that.
Yeah.
There's a saying I don't know how to say, obviously, about publicity.
But I hope that makes sense, because, like I said, it's not. I'm not an idiot. But I do tend to, and I don't have ADHD, but I do have ADHD when it comes to, all of a sudden 9 million videos surface and everybody has something to say, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, I don't know what's happening anymore. And it's a sad thing, it's a sad thing for when I do decide I do want to care about certain issues, right?
See, I would, in the essence and discussion of that, I've always been a very pro-feminist. It was something when I grew up, I wasn't. I grew up conservative Christian. And that's one of the things that I feel penance to have to pay for, I guess, if you want to call it that, because I had some horrible beliefs before, and so now, but I do see the point, and it's funny because I will call people out, not as much as I used to, but it's funny at work. I'll say, people say things, and it's amazing once you open your eyes how horribly sexist society can be.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when I work in a warehousing and manufacturing environment, for fuck's sake,
Yep.
with people 20 years my elder who don't believe the same way as I do, who've made a lot of money and are comfortable in their lives. And why do they have to change? And I think it's that comfortability that forces it different. I don't know how much money you make, but I can't imagine that you're a multimillionaire.
Well, with my Pastor J videos, I've reached bajillionaires of dollars.
You've exceeded Joel Osteen.
Yeah.
You and Joel Osteen have this private club where you go and hang out with I spent $20 million on this room and you spent $20 million on this room, and we get together and we jack off in each other's rooms.
Whoa.
Yep.
We share a room. Thank you very much.
You share it. you jack off in the same room Joel Osteen jacks off in. Jesus. That's a good meme right there. That's a good meme right there.
Yeah, right.
But the point comes back to is that there's an extreme to both sides, and I think everybody has to see that. But,
absolutely.
And I start pointing things out at work. I do it very subtly, and if somebody gets angry, it's like, okay, hey, no big deal, and I walk away. But I planted that message there, and it's kind of funny because it makes me feel really bad because when I was a Christian, people used to do that shit. Like as Christians, you would, my family they would be real nice about things, and they'd say something, and then you'd be like, no, I don't agree with that, and they'd be like, okay, no problem. And then all of a sudden, the next time it comes up, you know what they're thinking. And you're like, God damn it, I knew you did that too nice and sly. But it works. In genuinity, it works. And, it's funny, my boss actually kind of said something to me the other day. He's like, I probably shouldn't say this because Chris is in the room. I was like, well, you just shouldn't say that at all. But if you want to say it, I'm not going to report you to HR. If that's what you want to hear, I'm not going to report you to HR over saying that. But I don't agree with you. And it's funny because the comments die down compared to what they were before. And, nobody's come and thanked me, and I don't want them to. I don't want people to. I don't even want to be noticed. I literally want people to stop saying shitty things sometimes.
Right, absolutely.
That's all I care.
Yep.
Don't say something shitty. And you won't bother me. But once you start saying shitty things, after a while I get sick of hearing it, and I don't know how else to get you to shut the fuck up sometimes. And so I'm just going to call you for it.
Well,
and I think if people did that more, and understood, so your method is going to be different than mine. You're going to make a comedy video. I'm probably not the most comedic individual in the world. I'm not going to say I don't have laughs sometimes, but I'm probably not. I'm not. You couldn't put me in stand up or doing comedy videos. That's just,
I don't. I couldn't do stand up to save my life either. I mean, in fact, my videos, like I said, are mostly co-written by other people, and I just have it down. But I can't deviate too far from what I do. Like other than laughing at things and finding everything funny, for what I do, for the content that I provide, that I give out to people, I can't deviate too far from it because I can't be funny any other way. So it's just a little niche that I found.
So you're like the one man show. You could do a one man show.
That's really what it comes down to. Like I couldn't do stand up comedy though, right? I couldn't. I'm better at either doing what I do like this, or I'm better at like being in a group of people and acting like an idiot. My comedy is making people laugh at me or the things that I say, because it makes me feel good when people laugh. And this kind of goes back, this whole thing about everyone laughing, everyone having a good time. This goes back to, I think, the simplistic way that I view the world, right? Like there was I kind of want to interject something here with what you said about work. There's a woman at my work. She's an older lady, and 90% of the people I work with are Mexicans. I don't care, right? I don't care. It's not a thing that even comes to my mind. But she gets mad whenever they hire a new Mexican because she wants more white people to work there. But she's old and she's allowed to say that. That's the idea of it, right? But I think my whole life, even as a Christian, because I was a fundamentalist Christian for 20 plus years and I was a Catholic for 2. So I was, I heard all these things that people say, to this day, on the YouTubes that you watch and all this stuff. I hear all the bigotry. But even as a hardcore Christian, on the surface, I had to say what I had to say so people didn't think I was weird. But underneath it all, I didn't care if women had abortion. I didn't care if somebody was gay. I didn't care if somebody was black or transgender. I didn't care. And so another thing that I have that may be a flaw in me is that I have this simplistic view of don't be a dick to anybody and let people do what they want. That's it. It's as simple as that, right? And sometimes it's hard for me to relate, not necessarily to people that get angry at bigots, but to relate to bigots because I just can't understand that mentality. I don't think I've ever had anything in my brain to where I wanted to outcast somebody because they didn't conform to the way I view the world, right? So for me, I'm just it's like, all right, so there's somebody at my work that's transgender. Who cares? I'm not gonna go out of my way to ask them about their private parts, but I'm also not gonna go out of my way to distance them from me because they're different, right? I've always understood that people are going to be who they want to be because even amidst all the hatred, because nobody wakes up one day and goes, hey, you know what? I want to be different because I want the world to hate me. And so you have all these people out there.
Unless you're Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Just Donald Trump. He's the only one that does. He wakes up in the mirror and he's combing his hair to his side.
Right.
And he's putting his fake wig on and he's combing it again and saying, hey, I'm going to be the best person that you're going to hate today.
So
and those are the real words.
So that's where it's it's hard for me to kind of fit myself. I feel out of place in a way because I don't know. And in some ways I don't know how to be angry about it, and in some ways I don't know how to hate. If that makes any sense. So it's a weird dynamic that I have, but yeah.
Well, I get it.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend like that. I have a friend that I met through my wife when we started dating. She had this group of friends she used to hang out with, and he was the only one that stuck around and hung out. And him and I actually are really good friends now. And it's kind of funny because he was an atheist before I was an atheist, and he had to listen to my spiritual woo-woo shit. He never said a damn thing ever, like not once. He never corrected me. And he's a brainiac, if you want to call it that. And he's very analytical, very dry humored, very deadpanish person. Great guy, but he could be a little too serious sometimes. But when I came out as an atheist, about 3 months into it, he goes, I've been an atheist for like the whole time we've known each other, right? No, I didn't. Oh, holy shit! Hey, let's have these. He's like, no, stop. I'm gonna stop you. I don't want to have. I've been an atheist for 15 years. I don't want to have these conversations, Chris.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry, Andy. I won't do that. But it's funny now because he knows what I do, and he comes over sometimes, and I'll be recording, and he'll be over early, and he'll just kind of laugh a little bit, and he'll be like, yeah, technically, and he'll go into this diatribe, and then he'll start talking with me about certain things, and we can connect now in a different way. But he's the same way. He doesn't read a lot of articles pertaining to these things. Like the transgender issue, he's the same way you are. He's like, why do people have a problem with this? His one question was, is it statistically shown that transgender people rape people? No. Okay, then I don't care. Why should anybody else care? And he would rather throw his money at somebody else to argue or to fight or to be the activist. Yeah. He doesn't want to be that activist. That's not him.
But with all that I said, though, I do want to make it known that I think what I want to be clear about is I don't understand the bigots. I can't even put myself in their shoes, but I do understand where people like Callie Wright are coming from, where people like insert name here are coming from when it comes to educating the world. Because as indifferent as I may be sometimes, I do want this world to be a better place. I do want my friends, and if I ever had family members, I would want, that were transgender, I want them to use the bathroom that they want to use. It's because I don't understand why that's a thing, right? And so while I might not be a quote unquote warrior when it comes to activism, I understand where people are.
It doesn't make you not an ally.
Right,
You're still an ally.
Right. I'm absolutely an ally, because even though it's kind of a weird dynamic, because even though my videos are meant to make fun of a certain demographic or whatever you want to call it, I'm not a mean-spirited person. I only laugh at ideas, and I only mock the ideas of some of the silly things out there, like conspiracy theories, God, all these things. But I'm never going to look at what anyone in the LGBTQ community has to go through. Yeah, I might joke about it as Pastor Jay, but it's always in good humor. Like, if you've seen those videos, like even most of my friends understand what I'm doing. I'm undermining what Christians think and all these other people think. But I can never laugh at some of the real life things that people do have to go through. I can't laugh and make fun of and think it's funny that there's an issue right now with people trying to use the bathroom. I can't laugh at somebody who's gay that gets beat up just because they're gay, because you have some inbred rednecks that decide we don't understand something, we're scared of it, so let's beat that person up. I can't laugh at that shit. That's the shit that makes me angry. When somebody has a different idea that's that just doesn't make sense, that's funny. When those ideas are used to cause violence, that's not funny anymore to me. And so I do want to make that clear. There is a level where I'm like, okay, I'm done.
So you have a tipping point then, is what you're saying. You're saying I have this point, and if we cross it, I'm done.
Yeah, because I know just to be clear, I know throughout this conversation I've said a million different things from a million points of view, but at the end of the day, I don't want people listening to this going, oh man, this guy doesn't give a fuck about anything. So I do have a stance, and I do support my friends I support my friends who can do things that I am incapable of doing, which is doing, activism, which is fighting religious harm, which is fighting pedophilia, which is fighting transgender issues, anything you can name of that's going to cause harm to another human being. I'm not a big fan of.
And I agree with you. Like I was saying, my buddy's the same. He can't. There's certain things he's just not capable. But my wife, she grew up in a very liberal home. She's the same way as you are. She doesn't understand when we have a segment on the show that we don't do often enough, I think, called "Crazy Shit Chris Used to Believe." That's me. I used to believe some crazy ass shit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But she kind of coined that because she was the one that we would have these conversations and we would have other people over. We'd be talking about it, and she'd be like, "Wait, you really fucking believe that shit? Wait, you really believe, Chris, that women have our men have one less rib than women? You honestly believe that?"
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, I kind of did believe that. She's like, yeah, she goes, I don't even know what the hell. Like, she doesn't know how to respond. And so my story and some of where I come from and my activism and what I touch point issues and where my passions lie are different than others, because for her, like you said, for her it's so inconceivable.
Yeah.
She can't. Her mom's the same way. Her mom's in her 60s, and her mom, Beth will tell her mom some stuff sometime, and her mom will be like, wait, Chris, gay people they shouldn't get this. They shouldn't be able to get married. You really believe your family? Seriously? She's like, I don't even understand. Some of my best friends are
Speaking of things that people used to believe, let me tell you a story. Rachel and I, we first started talking, right? I'm still a relatively new atheist, and she's 7 years into studying evolution. And we were talking one day about Noah's Ark, and at this point I'm an atheist, but I was still like, I still understood where a lot of creationists were coming from at the time. Again, because I was very ignorant to what evolution taught and all these sorts of things. And I told her, we were having a conversation one day about how kangaroos could have gone from where the Ark was allegedly left to Australia. And I said, oh, that's easy, because at one time all the continents were together, and the kangaroos just traveled to Australia. And she just, her face contorted, and she's like, you realize the continents spread apart like like billions or millions or billions of years ago, whatever. I realized at the time that what I said made no sense whatsoever, because even if like the Ark was true, a few thousand years ago, the continents weren't together, right?
So they'd already separated.
Yeah, and it's easy to think those things. I was listening to the Catholic radio show a while ago, and there's this one priest that's always on there named Father Mitch Pacwa, and I hate his fucking voice, dude. I hate this guy so much.
Can you imitate it? You got to torture everybody.
He's got like a raspy voice, and when he starts talking, he just doesn't shut the fuck up. And this guy will go on. Like last night, Rachel and I were driving around, and she heard him say something about how rape is bad, but rape with having a baby like isn't a problem or whatever, because God, even though he doesn't make energy anymore, he still creates souls. So when a woman gets raped, the soul is created. And another time he said something like, atheists want to talk about how bad Christians are with starting wars, but atheists have killed more people in World War II than all the other wars combined. And forget the fact that, Hitler wasn't an atheist. What he said was so wrong in so many ways. One of them being, sure, more people might have died in World War II, but it doesn't negate the fact that Christians have started more wars, one, and two, that when World War II happened, there were just a lot more people on the planet with a lot more weapons that could kill a lot more people. So to take this one war and say atheists are just as bad, if not worse, you're forgetting about modern day era, and you're also forgetting about how many have been started, right? And it got, I mean, I'm nitpicking there, but it got to the point with, it's at the point with this guy where I want to write into that station and be like, look, I know what you guys are trying to do what you got to do, but this guy's got to go. He has given me, like, I firmly believe, like, if I was president, I would make it so no matter what side you're on, there has to be a representative from the opposite side to speak up whenever shit goes wrong. So, for example, you're at a church and the pastor says atheists are just Satanists. I would love for an atheist to be able to be in the back to stand up and go, nope. Everyone, just so everyone knows, we just don't believe in a God. That's all it is. We don't even believe in Satan. Thank you. And then sit back down, just so there could be those corrections made. Because that's one of my biggest pet peeves with a lot of these arguments is especially the one-sided arguments, is you never get to hear what the opposing side gets to say. And the people that are spouting all this nonsense are just saying shit that isn't a real thing. And what's sad about it, especially in debates, right? Especially in debates when you have, for example, evolutionism versus creationism, when if these people are on the podium talking, they've done this before, right? It's probably not their first rodeo. They're probably up there for a reason, which means they should know all the arguments from the other side. In fact, No Illusions from the Scathing Atheist did a diatribe about this on one of his episodes. I can't remember which one it was because I'm going through the back catalog right now. But he made a comment about, if you're going to have a debate with somebody, know their arguments. Otherwise, you're going to look like an idiot. And Phil Plait and Joe Rogan had a debate about, and Noah said this, they had a debate about fake moon landings, and Phil Plait lost the first debate because he didn't understand where Joe Rogan was going to come from. Well, he wiped the floor with him the second debate, and Joe Rogan now doesn't think the moon landings are fake, apparently. But that's the problem with a lot of these people, is they say all these different things, and they don't know. It's like they either don't have the knowledge, or they just don't care, and they just say all these things that aren't true, and it's so fucking frustrating for me. That's one of the issues that does kind of work me up. But again, it feeds into the whole Pastor J thing, which is why I can say the most wrong shit possible, and it's kind of mimicking real life.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of goes into, the last topic we wanted to talk about, which was the only original topic that we wanted to talk about. But we've spent, I don't know, an hour or so going off on everything else. But
I want to say real quick before we go any further, before we get on this topic, for anybody that's listening who's just mind blown confused as about, I can't even fucking talk, I'm so tired. Let me simplify it. For anyone that's confused about the words that were coming out of my mouth, my brain is a very dynamic brain. It's a very situational brain, and sometimes my opinions and my stances on things can fluctuate a lot. And so if anybody wants to send me an email and ask me what the fuck I actually meant with anything I said here, go ahead and do that.
And what we're going to do is take a quick commercial break so I can refresh my drink. We'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
This is Ishmael Brown, the HNIC from the Angry Black Rant podcast, and you're listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics.
If you guys like what you're hearing on Cellar Door Skeptics, please consider sponsoring us on our Patreon page. Our goal at Cellar Door Skeptics is to help promote more science, skepticism, secularism, and humanism in the world. We want to create better content for our podcast and for you, the listener, all while trying to help promote local activism. We're going to strive to make better podcasts, and I'll tell you what, we're even going to contribute some of the proceeds to charity. So please join us over at Patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics to make sure that you sponsor us for as little as $1 an episode. Thank you guys so much, and prepare for the revolution.
Looking for something new and exciting, or maybe just a change from the old Atheist Show format? Cellar Door Skeptics Podcast provides listeners with hours of enjoyment each week on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out as we talk politics, religion, science, reviews of books and music, along with the occasional interview just for a twist. Join Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern as they bring fresh content to you. Walk with us through the cellar door as we help you prepare for the revolution. You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and even on Facebook.
This is Trav Ramon, host of the By Any Means podcast, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution. We have cookies.
Now, back to the show.
As we look towards the last segment, we want to talk about, is God more evil than Satan? And I think you made a post on there on your Facebook page, which is kind of what sparked this whole, hey, you know what, you do the music for the show, we've never had you on the show, hey, we've talked to each other, but we've never actually done a live hangout together, hey, you know, this would be fun. And you posted a conversation thread, right? You basically said, do people really honestly think that, you know, Satan is the bad guy? How do people not do this? And I don't know if this was like data mining so that you could use this for a future video. But honestly, you know, like I answered it, and then like a half hour later, I was like, I bet he's going to use that for a video. That little fucker, that's sly. That's a good tactic. I never thought about that before. But you know, it coming from my perspective, it actually brings out a lot of, you know, discussion. You know, who is Satan? Where does he come from? Is there any sort of structure in the Bible that talks about it? And the first article I think we should touch on.
Well, before we get into the article, I do want to bring up why I brought up that point, because I don't know who came up with this, and I don't know when I heard it, but I remember somebody saying, you know, it would be funny if God was Satan and Satan was God, and everyone was forced to believe in the wrong thing. You know, they always talk about the greatest trick the devil could pull was that he didn't exist at all. And so, assuming that God and Satan were real, which we both agree that he isn't, but, you know, with this mindset that he is, wouldn't it be funny if that was his greatest trick, is to making people worship the wrong thing, right? Now, you can nitpick that all you want, and I'm sure there's a way to make it sound, you know, to make it not make sense, but it's a funny concept to me, because when you look at how people describe Satan, most of it isn't biblical. And I actually asked this of a friend at my work who's a pretty hardcore Christian, a quiet hardcore Christian. But I asked him the other day, I was like, how do you know? Why do you guys look at the devil as if he's evil? And his only response was, because the devil tempted Eve. And I said, that wasn't the devil that tempted Eve. That was just a serpent. It doesn't say it was Satan. I don't think it did. And I still don't know, because I didn't read up. But if you look at, even if that was the devil didn't really do anything wrong in Genesis. He was just like, hey, basically God's pulling the wool over your eyes. Just eat this fruit and you're going to have knowledge and all this stuff. But then you start, you know, thinking about all these stories in the Bible. And I admit that, you know, even though I read the Bible, I don't remember most of it. Most of the bad things, most of the descriptors about who the devil is and how bad he is come in the New Testament. Especially towards Revelations, about the things he is going to do. And so it always amuses me, because these people make this devil out to be this most horrible, horrific, the most horrible thing that has and will ever exist in the universe. Yet the Bible is very vague on who he is. Even like with Job, he had to ask permission of this God to fuck with Job. Some people died, but, you know, as you read these stories, it turns out God ends up being more evil. If evil was something that existed, that's a whole another conversation. But you know, God ends up becoming more evil than Satan. And I do want to read in one of the actually in Answers in Genesis. I know you saw this article on, and I'll let you have this after this, but it's funny because it says, and when they ask about, you know, it says, what about Satan and the origin of evil? One of the paragraphs says, these and similar questions are valid questions to ask. To answer them, we need to carefully consider what the Bible says, since it is the only completely reliable source of information about Satan. the Bible doesn't give much information about Satan or the angels, but it does give enough to answer some of these questions and go through all these things. So first of all, I have issues with the Bible being the only source of information. Forget about the reliable, because the Bible isn't reliable. But the fact
are you sure? I think they would disagree with you on that one.
the fact that the Bible is the only source of information and what's in that Bible about who the devil was isn't that much. That says a lot, and it almost seems as if throughout the ages, people have made the devil, more horrible than what he ever was intended to be.
Mm-hmm.
And but go ahead. I just wanted to kind of say those things.
Well, and I agree with you, and that's kind of funny because I guess that's one of the things I never thought about. And how many podcasts have I listened to in the last 4 years? And it has never really been a big thing, but it kind of makes sense. When I did I know you said earlier you don't like debates, but I have done a few debates. I used to do a bunch of debates, but, I did actual formal debates. And one of the arguments I like to use, and, for any Christians listening, which is probably none, but if any do listen to the show, then, one of the debate topics that I always tackle is, the problem of evil and basically an all-knowing God that's hidden. Those are like the highlights. I have a hard time, but that feeds into this, because if God is the evil one and Satan was the good one, or even if Satan was non-existent and God developed an evil character to shift the blame from, he's like, hey guys, I can't control everything, because you can't have good without evil. Almost like it's almost. I don't want to say it's evolutionarily impossible, but to a point, that's almost what it feels like, right? It almost feels a little bit like you can't have the one without the other, because there's no such thing as ultimates or absolutes. There's nothing that's absolute, and science tells you that. And so that would be the big thing. And so that Answers in Genesis article, it literally says, who is Satan? And was he always called Satan? And they go, this is what they say, just like you said. They said the first use of the name Satan is found in 1 Chronicles 21:1. And chronologically, Job, which was written much earlier, suppresses this. Satan is found throughout Job 1 and 2, but Satan literally just means adversary. So it's almost like our English language has fucked everything up, right? Like we've had to translate the Bible because we're too stupid to want to learn old ancient languages, that we've misinterpreted all of this. But that's funny, because its Answers in Genesis is admitting that Satan, the name, the word, is non-existent, but yet they use it all the time.
Well, let me, you kind of cut off there for a minute, but you said something about evolutionary, and I think you said I might have misunderstood you, or probably forgot what you said, but you said something about no absolutes. Like what? Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. In the realm of how science works, is you don't have anything that's an absolute. Nothing is 100%. Yeah, and I know that's the problematic aspect of the question. You can't absolutely say that. There's always a probability, a small probability that you could be wrong. And we could talk about solipsism and presuppositionalism if you really want, but I find those topics null and void at this current time, and I don't think you're a presuppositionalist. I don't think Pastor Jay is either. But to me, the absolute thing would be like, hey, is the sun going to rise every day? You can't absolutely say it is. You can say that you're 99.9% sure, and that throughout your lifetime and the history, you've seen it rise, and it's been recorded to rise. It's not actually rising. I guess it's a false dichotomy. But you can't say it absolutely will always do this or always has.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I also want to kind of touch on that too, because, and we'll get back into the whole God versus Satan, good versus evil kind of mentality or idea in a bit. But I also want to, this might get me into trouble too, but a lot of people have a hard time understanding that it is possible to not view people as evil. It's possible to look at someone like Jeffrey Dahmer or the BTK killer and think they weren't necessarily evil or even bad people, because yes, we view that as bad, right? Because I'm not a killer. I don't want anybody to be killed. And so to me, that is a bad thing. But when you look at it from a outside point of view, BTK killer, Jeffrey Dahmer, all these people, they most likely had something wrong with their brain, right? To their brain, they saw nothing wrong with what they were doing. And if they saw any wrong with what they were doing, it was probably because they were aware of what society would think of them for those things. And so when you start looking at human beings, for example, if you start looking at humans like that and think, we're essentially slaves to our own brain. If you ever watch the show Brain Games, you realize how fucking stupid we are, and you realize how a lot of outside influences affect our perception of reality, and you start to see that you start to look at things and you start to wonder, what is evil, right? It's a tough question to ask, and so when you ask that question, you have to take into account that there might be people born with a brain, that is, on one hand, completely messed up and crazy according to us. There are also people, on the other hand, that are born, like there's this guy in Australia that his whole life didn't want his leg. And one day he put his leg in a bathtub and he cut off his leg. And he said, he claims that he feels a lot better about it now. His life is great because he doesn't have his fucking leg anymore. His brain was wired to tell him that he didn't, his leg wasn't good for him to have on his body. And so, obviously I'm no scientist, so I can't give you all the technical details, but there's something to be said in what is good and what is evil and what is right and what is wrong and what's normal and what's not normal, which is why this goes, even not to stray away from the subject too much, but it also goes into when you look at people who imagine themselves differently as how they were born, right? None of it's bad. It's just the way our brains were wired when we were born, right? And so when you look at this whole, I know it's a very long and complicated and very technical subject to be had, but I wanted to say all that because when you look at the God and Satan thing, right? God is pure perfectness according to this story, and Satan is pure evil and the worst you can get, the complete black and white. When you really look at it, even removing everything I just said, when you look at the actual story, it's not as black and white as it seems. Because then you look at situations like there's the website. I know you found your own, but I went to Daltonator.net and there's an article that says, "Is Satan really a bad guy?" And it has a list down here, and it talks about the things that God has done, and it talks about the things Satan has done. And Satan has a very short list. And most of the things, like one of the things is there is no biblical record of Satan ever ordering someone to kill somebody else, unlike God, who has repeatedly demanded the deaths of those who commit even the smallest of offenses. And so, again, with all that I said about the whole brain thing, just taking the story as it is, God is not a good guy.
That's an understatement, man.
Yeah, and you could almost look at God from this outside perspective and go, God is fucking crazy. He's murderous. He's genocidal. He's hateful. He's bigoted. He is the most human God. He is the most human thing that I've ever seen, right? Well, not ever, because I've seen humans that are just as bad as God, but my point stands. And so it makes you really question, who really is the bad guy? And so that's what amuses me sometimes when I talk to religious people and they start talking about you're gonna go to hell, Satan's got you, and you're like, why would you, if anything, because I'm a good person, Satan is probably gonna help me out more than God.
Yeah. Well, and in that Answers in Genesis article, basically one of the questions that comes out is, was Satan originally a fallen angel? And all of a sudden it goes, well, we find that Satan masquerades as an angel of light. He's another allusion to his angel-like status. And, you stop and you think about it. In debates or in conversations I've had, I use that actually, that God is, or that Satan would be the ultimate deceiver. But how do we know? Could God lie to us? If God is possible of lying, because whatever he does is perfect, he writes his own rules, right? He could write the rule that Satan's an illusion, but so could God. And so if Satan can masquerade and you could never know, does it make it evil to follow something you don't quite understand? is that even a possible thing? I mean, now
Exactly.
we're moving into this big philosophy, heavy segment. But in reality, though, in true reality, how could you know that? And that's my argument to Christians, and me saying is, you want to claim God's ultimately right, but if God could lie to you, and that would be saying he could lie to you righteously, right? He could find a reason to righteously lie to you,
right?
In any way, shape, or form. Then how would you ever be able to trust that God? And therefore, at some point, instead of, you should take the best parts of what you want out of the Bible to live your life by, but stop shoving, the crazy, weird, you have to do these type of things down everybody else's throat, because you could just be being lied to.
But see, this goes into this idea that, people make up God however they want to make him up, the same way they make up these crazy ideas that, they need to hate other people for whatever, right? Like, and especially when you mention this list of Christians, I'd put my money on when you ask somebody, well, how do you rectify this? How does this, how do you get around this? I would put my money on the fact that they would just come up with the final answer of, well, it's God, so he can do whatever he wants. But then I ask, if that's the case, that means God could lie about you going to heaven. Even if you went to heaven, God could lie and still send you to hell. Well, God's not capable of lying. God can do whatever he wants to do, and he has done whatever he's wanted to do. And this whole idea about Satan, like, falling from heaven because he wanted to be like God. I mean, call me a narcissist, but if somebody wanted to be like me, I would call that flattery. And if I was a god, and if I was at the top of the chain, I wouldn't be really concerned with people overthrowing me. Which that can lead into a lot of the paganism ideas of, if God gets overthrown, other gods, blah blah blah. Yeah, that could go further. But it's fascinating, man. It's something that even as a Christian, I always struggled with.
Yeah. One of the things too in that is, if you think about it, how did Satan become Satan, right? I mean,
who gave him the power?
Yeah, who gave him the power? How do you determine that? And like you said to begin with, there is very few verses in the Old Testament that talk about Satan. Actually, they don't talk about Satan. They talk about, a whole different being, right? So there's very few verses that talk about it. But if you sit there and think about it, some of me thinks if we look at the evolution side of things, right? And we look at how people evolve, and you admitted earlier tonight that you've evolved in your beliefs, and you're still open to continuing to change them if
Absolutely,
more evidence comes.
Yep.
And I'm the same way. But think about it. If you were a, 2000 BC individual, right? And all of a sudden you're reading through all these old texts, you're like, man, this person we worship sounds like a dick. This dude's an asshole. Hold on. Rewrite, everybody. Rewrite. We know that some of these things are bad now. So we're going to slowly... Oh, hey, you know what? What would be good? Let's find somebody to blame this on. Oh,
yeah.
A guy in a red suit? Yeah, horns? Oh, yeah, what do we now? Oh, we don't like all those things. Yeah, we're going to make that person the scapegoat. And then that's how Satan's... To me, that's how it almost feels like Satan's born.
I want to interject something, too. This is kind of funny to me. And this really only... I think this type of thinking only works if you're a non-believer. But ancient aliens, right? And what? No, hear me out, because I'm not actually straying too far. Ancient aliens. You listen to people like Eric Von Daniken, and I could name off a list. Anyway, a bunch of people talk about how back in the day people drew pictures of things, and that's somehow proof. To me, when you read the Bible and you look at this stuff, all of this is proof that people, since people could think, had really, really great imaginations. I mean, even if people did draw UFOs in their caves back in the day, that just shows like how unlimited our imagination is. We can write a book like the Bible and come up with all these ideas. We can, even to this day, we can create all this imagery of things that aren't real. And you just said it yourself. Satan has evolved over time. None of it's biblical, but he's evolved. Human beings we are amazing at creating things in our head. Just because the airplane is a relatively new invention doesn't mean that we didn't think about flying in the past. So is it so far to think that airplane-looking objects on the sides of caves and the sides of pyramids could have been just somebody's imagination?
Yeah, it's not. It's not a big leap. And in reality, it's probably actually the more probable answer than anything else.
Right.
I mean, and it's funny because my father-in-law, before he passed away, he would say these things. He would say, he loves science fiction, right? But he would say this one thing. He says, is it really logical that any sort of alien is going to come down and take somebody off the earth to shove something up their ass?
Right.
And why would they want to come fuck with us? Wouldn't they have, if they're more intelligent, if they could travel through space, why would they come fuck with us? At some point, if evolution holds true throughout the universe, and if that's the only thing that we can say, hey, this looks like it's continued to happen no matter what all over since it's been put in motion. If we look at that and understand that logically, evolutionary-wise, they wouldn't come fuck with us. They would either come kill us or help us, one of the two.
Well, even if they did come to this planet to observe us, it's not a far stretch to imagine that we would have figured out something. I mean, sure, there are objects that we are still finding that we should have found, but things are dark out there. It's a big universe. Sometimes rocks are hard to spot. So it's rational to assume that even a UFO coming in could be hard to spot if a UFO existed. But when you're a UFOologist, or however you want to say it, and you tell me that there's a 21-mile-long spaceship in the sky, you're fucking high, dude. You are so fucking high. That doesn't work on this planet. Maybe if that was a thing, it could work out in space. But when they started talking about, and this is the shit that gets to me, dude. It's like when they discovered, like, they're like, oh my god, there's this. We just found this sun, and it's got this weird, blinking pattern, and it doesn't seem like it's planets. And then all of a sudden, someone's like, well, this guy a few years ago, or so many years ago, thought of the Dyson sphere. Let's say it's that. And so a lot of people were coming out with the articles saying it could be something like that. And then, again, going back to what I said earlier with my mindset, it's absurd for me to even entertain that possibility without thinking, it's like Occam's razor. It's absurd to think of that possibility without thinking of another possibility. It's absurd to think about that possibility at all when we haven't even thought of other possibilities. It's like, why are we even going there yet? And so, yeah. I mean, I didn't mean to go on a rabbit trail, but yeah, we are capable of thinking of whatever the fuck we want to think about, and this goes back to the whole God and Satan thing. It's not absurd to me to imagine that people back in the day created a story like this and have altered it throughout the ages, especially even in the Bible. It says in the New Testament, you hear about Satan more.
Yeah. And it would make sense. I guess it would make sense. I mean, if we were to add up how many people God killed in the Bible versus how many people Satan did, it would be God and not Satan killing people. And in the end, it's God. God's the one doing it everywhere you look. God's killing people. And in the end, so that would dictate that there's no such thing as absolutes in the Christian realm, because you couldn't have an absolute, because if God killed somebody, it would be bad no matter what. So the only absolute that can come out of the Bible, and I've had this argument before with people, and I think it's silly. The only absolute is that God's always right. God is literally moral fluid, is what I call it.
No. God is always right because you don't want to go to hell. That's why God is always right.
Because he's the ultimate bully?
No. Look, people, including myself when I was a Christian, will say whatever we have to say to not go to hell. And one thing I'll say is when I was a Catholic, I felt like a lot more Catholics believed in God because they felt bad that Jesus died for them. That seemed to be the recurring theme. Christians, like fundamentalists, non-Catholics, seem to believe in God because they didn't want to burn forever. I have yet to meet a Christian, and this is what really amazes me, is that people don't worship God for the sake of worship and a God who did good for them. They worship God because he could do bad to them if they don't. Think about it. I mean, and you ask these people, like, that's the fear. That's why people don't want to learn anything anymore. That's why people are scared to question. That's why we are the ultimate horrible people, because we're not going to their home when we die, according to them. We're going to this evil, burning place It's all fear-based, man. And so, of course, you know, you have to create a Satan in this universe in order to frighten people. You have to create this horrible person. They just neglected to make this guy show up earlier.
Yep. It's almost like Satan is the ultimate diversion from the abuse of God.
Yeah.
That you worship.
Yep.
So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know that was a little long, and your girlfriend's probably sitting there going, "God damn it, Will's too shut the fuck up" at some point.
Oh no, that's good.
But we as we round out and wrap up for the night, you got to tell everybody, and we'll post links in the description. But we always like to hear what is the best place that they can find you to get into contact with you if they have any questions about your music, your comedy, your sketch writing. Your I don't know, what do they call it, a drama podcast? I think is what Atheist Apocalypse technically is considered. It's a drama podcast, or anything else that you do.
All right, so the first thing we'll do is the Atheist Apocalypse podcast. It's a story drama. I'm a big fan of Welcome to Night Vale, and so it has that type of, you know, it's newscasters talking about the apocalypse that happened. And obviously, the atheists are still left behind, and it's funny. It's a comedy podcast. I just do all the music for it, and I do some of the production to it. The season 3 is starting up pretty soon, so check that out. It's at atheistapocalypse.com. You can find them on Twitter and other media outlets. My Know the Truth, Pastor J stuff is at YouTube, but the trick is, and I fucked this up at the beginning, it's spelled wrong on purpose, but I spelled it Konw, the Trut. And when you type that into YouTube, YouTube's going to ask you, did you mean this? And it's going to ask you if you meant to spell it the right way. Don't click on that one. Click on the misspelled wording, and you're going to see all my videos. The videos, the older ones aren't as good. If you watch I have a bunch of different themes, like the fine-tuned universe. The whole point of it's satire. It's undermining religion and other things. So check it out. Some people will find it funny. Some people won't. My music is aloststateofmind.com. It's all one word. And you could also go to aloststateofmind.bandcamp.com. And all the music's free. Some of the albums are instrumental. Some of them I sing. Check it out. And then I also have another YouTube channel called Music Deconstructed, which I haven't been active on it for like a month or two. But basically I use that channel to talk about music, production. I even break down some of my songs, and I do some guitar playthroughs. So if you want to see a super sexy guy playing an 8-string guitar, check that out.
Do you do it shirtless?
No, that would make me not super sexy.
maybe we'll start a Patreon account to get you shirtless.
Yeah, right. I have to start working out. The thing about the whole know the truth thing is, we love interacting with our fans or interacting with people. So if you end up liking the channel, feel free to comment, send emails. If you want to ask Pastor J a question, there's a guarantee there's probably going to be a video about it. Have fun with us. We want to make people laugh. Comment, subscribe, share, tell all your Christian friends about it too. That would be funny. And by the way, the music's very dark and depressing, so there's a huge contrast right there. But it's my alternate,
it's your alternate self.
Yeah. So if you like, Tool, 9 Inch Nails, dark stuff, I'm not saying I'm as good as them, but you might like them. But anyway,
So cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure to have you on, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely, man. It was fun, definitely.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around through another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Next week, we're going to be talking about Trump and immigration, stem cells, and we're going to have an interview with a children's book author, Catherine, and about the controversy that has been created in Grand Rapids. Make sure you like us, subscribe to us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, subscribe to us on Spreaker, and make sure you give us a rating. And that is all. Thank you, and have a great night.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, cellardoorskeptics.com.